Chapter 1. The Invitation to Glastonbury. The late autumn sun cast a feeble glow over London, its rays struggling through the fog that clung to Baker Street like a persistent guest. Inside his meticulously ordered flat, Hercule Poirot sat in his favorite armchair, a cup of tisane steaming gently on the table beside him. His small, precise hands held an envelope of heavy cream-colored paper, embossed with a crest that spoke of wealth and tradition. The envelope had arrived that morning, and Poirot, with his habitual curiosity, had studied it as one might study a rare painting. "Mon ami Hastings," he called, his voice carrying the faintest trace of exasperation, "you have not yet expressed your opinion on this matter. What do you make of this invitation?" Captain Arthur Hastings, who had been idly flipping through a newspaper, looked up with a start. "Oh, the invitation. Well, it's rather grand, isn't it? Glastonbury Manor, Sir Reginald Hawthorne. Sounds like a jolly weekend in the country. Why the long face, Poirot?" Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of mild disapproval. "The face? It is not long, Hastings. It is merely contemplative. An invitation to a country manor. It is not always what it seems. The English, they have a fondness for such gatherings. But often there is the undercurrent, the tension, the little secrets that simmer beneath the surface." Hastings chuckled, folding the newspaper. "You stutter imagining things, old chap. Sir Reginald Stut's a botanist, isn't he? Probably wants to show off his prize roses or some such. The invitation mentions a unique spectacle. Servus. Sounds harmless enough." Poirot's green eyes narrowed as he reread the letter within the envelope. The handwriting was elegant, almost ostentatious, and the words carried a tone of insistence that piqued his interest. "My dear Monsieur Poirot, it would give me the greatest pleasure if you would honor us with your presence at Glastonbury Manor for a weekend gathering, commencing this Friday. I am eager to share a unique spectacle, the culmination of years of botanical endeavor, which I believe will intrigue a mind as discerning as yours. Your reputation for insight precedes you, and I trust you will find our company stimulating. Should you accept, a car will collect you at your convenience. Yours sincerely, Sir Reginald Hawthorne." Poirot tapped the letter against his chin. A botanist. Yes, but a man of wealth and ambition. This unique spectacle, it is not merely a flower, Hastings. No, it is something more. And why does Sir Reginald require the presence of Hercule Poirot? It is not for the charm of my conversation alone, I think."
Hastings grinned.
"Perhaps he's heard of your fondness for order and symmetry. A garden sep's just the place for you, everything in neat rows." Poirot sighed, setting the letter down. "You jest, but the order, it is essential. The mind, it must be clear, like the glass of the conservatory where no doubt this spectacle resides. Very well, Hastings, we shall go. But mark my words, there will be more at Glastonbury Manor than roses and polite conversation." By Friday afternoon, Poirot and Hastings were seated in a sleek Rolls-Royce, gliding through the rolling hills of Kent. The driver, a taciturn man with a weathered face, offered little beyond a nod when Poirot attempted to engage him in conversation. Hastings, meanwhile, gazed out at the countryside, his enthusiasm undimmed by Poirot's cautious demeanor. "Lovely part of the world," Hastings remarked. "I say, Poirot, you ought to relax. A weekend away will do you good." Poirot adjusted his gloves, his expression unreadable. The relaxation, it is for those who do not see. I, Hercule Poirot, I see always. As the car turned onto a long gravel drive, Glastonbury Manor came into view, a sprawling Elizabethan estate of red brick and mullioned windows, its chimneys piercing the sky like sentinels. To one side, catching the last light of the day, stood the Crystal Conservatory, a magnificent structure of glass and iron that shimmered like a jewel. Its panes reflected the surrounding oaks, creating an illusion of endless greenery. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, leaning forward. "It is a marvel, this conservatory, but beauty it can conceal as much as it reveals." The car drew to a halt, and a butler, impeccable in his black tailcoat, greeted them at the entrance. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings," he intoned, "Sir Reginald awaits you in the drawing-room." The interior of Glastonbury Manor was as grand as its exterior, with oak-panelled walls, Persian rugs and chandeliers that cast a warm glow. The drawing-room was alive with the murmur of voices as Poirot and Hastings entered. Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a tall man with a shock of white hair and a commanding presence, strode forward to greet them. "Monsieur Poirot," he boomed, his handshake firm. "An honor, sir, an absolute honor. And Captain Hastings, welcome. I trust the journey was pleasant?" "Most pleasant," Poirot replied, his eyes already scanning the room. "And this manor, it is magnificent. The conservatory in particular, it intrigues me." Sir Reginald Sepp's eyes gleamed. "Does it now? Well, you shall see it properly tomorrow. A triumph, if I do say so myself. Come, let me introduce you to our little party." The guests were a varied group, each introduced with a flourish by Sir Reginald. There was Clara Hawthorne, his niece, a young woman with delicate features and a nervous smile. Victor Hawthorne, his nephew, whose polished manners could not quite hide a restless energy, and Dr. Evelyn Marsh, a botanist with sharp eyes and a reserved demeanour. A few others, local gentry and a retired colonel, completed the assembly, but Poirot's attention lingered on the Hawthornes and Dr. Marsh. As drinks were served, Poirot observed the interactions. Clara fidgeted with her glass, casting glances at Victor, who was deep in conversation with Sir Reginald. Dr. Marsh stood apart, her gaze fixed on the conservatory visible through the window. There was a moment, fleeting but unmistakable, when Sir Reginald's voice sharpened as he spoke to Victor, though the words were lost in the hum of the room. "Dinner will be served shortly," the butler announced, and the party began to move toward the dining room. Poirot, trailing behind with Hastings, paused at the threshold. "What is it, Poirot?" Hastings whispered. "You Seb got that look again." Poirot sits, moustache curved slightly. "It is nothing, Hastings. Or perhaps it is everything. The little grey cells, they are already at work. This weekend it will not be as Sir Reginald expects." As they joined the others, the Crystal Conservatory gleamed in the distance, its beauty a silent promise of secrets yet to be uncovered. Chapter 2. The Shimmer of Glass. The morning sun, having finally breached the Kentish mist, bathed Glastonbury Manor in a golden haze. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed despite the early hour, stood at the French windows of the breakfast-room, his gaze fixed on the Crystal Conservatory that dominated the manor's eastern lawn. Its glass panes sparkled like 1,000 diamonds, each reflecting the vibrant greens of the surrounding gardens. To Poirot, it was not merely a structure but a puzzle, a place where beauty and secrets might intertwine. "Magnificent, is it not, Monsieur Poirot?" Sir Reginald Hawthorne's voice boomed as he joined Poirot at the window, a cup of coffee in hand. His white hair gleamed almost as brightly as the conservatory itself, and his eyes held a proprietary pride. "Indeed, Sir Reginald," Poirot replied, his tone measured. "It is a triumph of architecture and ambition. One wonders what treasures such a place might hold." Sir Reginald chuckled. A deep, resonant sound. "Treasures, yes. You shall see them soon enough. Isette planned a tour after breakfast. My collection of flora is unparalleled, if I do say so myself." Captain Hastings, who had just entered with a plate of kedgeree, overheard the exchange. "Flora, eh? I stim no gardener, but I stimmed wager there stims something special in there. What stims the star of the show, Sir Reginald?" Sir Reginald's smile tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Patience, Captain. All will be revealed." He turned to greet another guest, leaving Poirot to exchange a glance with Hastings. "Something special indeed," Poirot murmured, his moustache twitching. "But I suspect it is not only the plants that merit our attention." The breakfast-room filled gradually, the guests assembling in a tableau of polite conversation and clinking china. Clara Hawthorne, Sir Reginald's niece, sat near the window, her delicate hands fidgeting with a napkin. Her eyes, Poirot noted, darted frequently toward the conservatory, as though it held some unspoken significance. Victor Hawthorne, her cousin, was all charm, regaling a retired colonel with tales of his travels, though his laughter rang a touch too loud. Evelyn Marsh, the botanist, entered last, her expression guarded as she declined the butler's offer of tea and opted for black coffee. Poirot, seated beside Hastings, observed the group with the precision of a watchmaker. "The dynamics, Hastings," he said softly. "They are already clear. The niece, she is anxious. The nephew, he performs. And Dr. Marsh, she watches, but does not engage. There is a story here, waiting to unfold." Hastings frowned, buttering a slice of toast. "You set reading too much into it, Poirot. They set her just a family with a few quirks. Not everyone sells hiding a dark secret." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Not everyone, perhaps, but someone." After breakfast, Sir Reginald led the party across the lawn to the conservatory, his stride brisk despite his age. The structure loomed larger as they approached, its iron framework, delicate yet sturdy, supporting panes of glass so clear they seemed to vanish against the sky. Inside, the air was warm and humid, heavy with the scent of earth and exotic blooms. Paths wound through lush foliage, past ferns with fronds like lace and orchids in shades of crimson and violet. "Welcome to my sanctuary," Sir Reginald declared, spreading his arms. "Here, I have gathered the rarest plants from every corner of the globe, each one a testament to nature, Simpson's ingenuity, and my own." The guests murmured their admiration, though Poirot's attention was drawn to a glass case at the conservatory's center. Within it, on a pedestal of polished wood, rested a single orchid, its petals a deep indigo flecked with gold. Its beauty was almost otherworldly, and Sir Reginald's voice softened as he gestured toward it. "This, my friends, is the Aurum Noctis," he said. "The night sept's gold. Discovered in the jungles of Borneo, it is the only one of its kind in cultivation. Its value, well, let us say it is beyond mere pounds and shillings." Clara gasped softly, her hand rising to her throat. Victor's smile faltered, and Dr. Marsh stepped closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the flower. Poirot, standing slightly apart, noted each reaction with care. "It is exquisite," he said, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity, "and such a rarity it must inspire envy, perhaps, or ambition." Sir Reginald Set's laugh was sharp. "Envy, perhaps, but ambition is what brought it here. Years of work, Monsieur Poirot, and no small expense." Dr. Marsh spoke for the first time, her tone clipped. "A remarkable achievement, Sir Reginald, though I wonder how did you stabilize its cultivation? The Aurum Noctis is notoriously fragile." Sir Reginald Set's eyes flickered, and Poirot sensed a tension beneath the exchange. "Trade secrets, Dr. Marsh," he replied lightly, "but rest assured it thrives under my care." The tour continued, but Poirot lingered near the orchid sept's case, his fingers brushing the glass. Hastings joined him, lowering his voice. "What sept's got your interest, Poirot? It's sept's just a flower, isn't septet?"
"Just a flower?"
Poirot echoed, his gaze distant. "No, Hastings, it is a motive." As the group dispersed to explore the conservatory sept's winding paths, Poirot overheard a heated exchange near a cluster of palms. Victor Sept's voice, low but insistent, reached his ears. "You can cert keep this up, Clara. He Sept's made his decision, and we cert have to deal with it." Clara Sip's reply was barely audible, tinged with distress. "But it's Sept's not fair, Victor. You know what it means to me." Poirot stepped closer, but the conversation ceased as Clara noticed his approach. She forced a smile, her cheeks flushed. "Monsieur Poirot, enjoying the conservatory?" "Very much, mademoiselle," he replied smoothly. "It is a place of great beauty, and perhaps great secrets." Victor laughed, a touch too heartily. "Secrets? You've a flair for the dramatic, sir. This is just a greenhouse, albeit a fancy one." Poirot inclined his head, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps, but the little grey cells, they are never idle." As the group reconvened, Sir Reginald announced that luncheon would be served on the terrace. The guests filed out, their voices mingling with the rustle of leaves. Poirot, trailing behind, paused at the conservatory's entrance, his eyes lingering on the Aurum Noctis. Its golden flecks seemed to pulse in the light, a silent promise of revelations to come. "Something is amiss here, Hastings," he said softly, as they stepped into the sunlight. "The shimmer of glass. It hides more than it reveals. And I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover what lies beneath." Chapter 3. A Whisper in the Foliage. The dining room of Glastonbury Manor glowed under the soft light of crystal chandeliers, their prisms casting delicate rainbows across the polished mahogany table. The air was rich with the aroma of roasted pheasant and claret, yet beneath the veneer of elegance, Hercule Poirot sensed a current of unease. The guests, assembled for Sir Reginald Hawthorne's lavish dinner, wore their smiles like masks, each concealing thoughts that Poirot's keen eyes sought to decipher. Seated to the right of Sir Reginald, Poirot observed the company with his customary precision. Captain Hastings, opposite him, was engaged in animated conversation with Colonel Rutherford, a retired military man whose booming laugh filled the room. Clara Hawthorne, Sir Reginald's niece, picked at her food, her delicate features drawn with a quiet anxiety. Victor Hawthorne, her cousin, was all charm, refilling glasses with a practiced ease that did not quite reach his eyes. Evelyn Marsh, the botanist, sat at the table's far end, her posture rigid, her responses to questions curt and measured. "Mon ami," Poirot murmured to Hastings, leaning slightly closer. "Observe the niece. She is like the bird, poised to take flight. Something troubles her, non." Hastings glanced at Clara, then shrugged. "She seems a bit nervy, I shall grant you. Probably just shy. Not everyone seems cut out for these grand affairs, Poirot." Poirot's moustache twitched, a sign of mild dissent. Shyness, perhaps. But the eyes, Hastings, they betray more than the tongue, and the nephew he performs. But for whom? Before Hastings could reply, Sir Reginald rose, tapping his glass with a silver spoon. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to their host. His white hair gleamed in the candlelight, and his voice carried the authority of a man accustomed to command. "My friends," he began, "I trust you have enjoyed the hospitality of Glastonbury Manor. Tomorrow I shall reveal the true purpose of our gathering, a discovery that will astonish the world of botany and beyond. Until then, let us toast to beauty, to ambition, and to the wonders of nature." Glasses were raised, but Poirot noted the varying degrees of enthusiasm. Clara's hand trembled as she sipped her wine. Victor's smile was a touch too tight, and Dr. Marsh barely lifted her glass, her gaze fixed on Sir Reginald with an intensity that bordered on hostility. As the dinner progressed, Poirot's attention was drawn to a brief exchange at the table, spar end. Victor leaned toward Clara, his voice low but urgent. "You must speak to him, Clara. It sets our last chance." Clara shook her head, her lips pale. "I can set Victor, not now, you know how he is." Poirot, though too far to hear every word, caught the tone of desperation. He filed the moment away, his little grey cells already weaving connections. Dessert was served, a delicate lemon soufflé, when the butler, Mr. Grayson, approached Sir Reginald with a discreet murmur. Sir Reginald nodded, then excused himself, promising to return shortly. His absence seemed to loosen the room's tension, but only slightly. "Doctor." Marsh excused herself as well, citing a need for fresh air, and Poirot noted the swift glance she cast toward the conservatory visible through the dining-room windows. "Curious," Poirot said softly, his fingers tracing the rim of his glass. "The botanist. She is drawn to the conservatory, yet she avoids its master. Why, I wonder—" Hastings frowned. "You set seeing mysteries everywhere, Poirot. She sets probably just keen on plants, like Sir Reginald." Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Plants, yes, but also secrets, I think." The dinner concluded, and the guests adjourned to the drawing-room for coffee and liqueurs. Poirot, declining a brandy, slipped out onto the terrace, where the cool night air carried the faint scent of jasmine. The Crystal Conservatory loomed in the darkness, its glass panes reflecting the moon like a mirror. As he stood, contemplating, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in rough work clothes, his face weathered by years outdoors. "Good evening, monsieur," Poirot said, his tone polite but probing. "You are, perhaps, the groundskeeper?" The man nodded, his expression wary. "Tom Wells, sir. I tend the gardens and the conservatory, when Sir Reginald permits." Poirot smiled, sensing an opportunity. "A great responsibility, non, the conservatory. It is a marvel. You must see much that others do not." Tom hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Aye, sir. Things I shouldn't sit, maybe. Lights in the conservatory at odd hours. Someone said's been poking about, though I can sit say. Who?" Poirot sits, interest sharpened. "Lights, you say? And when did you last see such a thing?" "Last night," Tom replied, glancing toward the manor. "Near midnight. Thought it was Sir Reginald at first, but it didn't set a move like him." Before Poirot could press further, a sudden commotion from the drawing-room interrupted them. The lights within flickered, then went out entirely, plunging the manor into darkness. Gasps and murmurs followed, and Poirot hurried inside, Tom trailing behind. "Stay calm, everyone," Colonel Rutherford Supp's voice boomed. "Just a fuse, no doubt." The lights returned moments later, revealing the guests in disarray. Clara stood by the fireplace, her face pale as chalk. Victor was near the door, his hand on the knob as if poised to leave. Dr. Marsh, who had re-entered unnoticed, stood by a window, her expression unreadable. Sir Reginald, back at the head of the room, looked irritated but composed. "A minor fault," he said briskly. "Nothing to concern us. Shall we continue?" But Poirot's gaze lingered on the group, his mind racing. The blackout, though brief, had revealed something, a shift in the atmosphere, a crack in the facade. He caught Clara's eye, and she looked away, her hands twisting together. As the evening drew to a close, Poirot and Hastings retired to their rooms. In the quiet of the corridor, Hastings yawned. "Well, that was a bit of excitement, eh? Nothing sinister, though, just a dodgy wire." Poirot paused at his door, his expression grave. "A wire, perhaps. But the whisper in the foliage, Hastings, it grows louder. Something stirs at Glastonbury Manor, and I fear it will not rest until it is uncovered." He bid Hastings good night, his thoughts already turning to the conservatory, where the aurum noctis stood sentinel, its golden flecks a silent witness to the secrets unfolding around it. Chapter 4. The Broken Petal. The morning at Glastonbury Manor dawned with a deceptive calm, the sun casting long shadows across the dew-kissed lawn. Hercule Poirot, ever an early riser, stood at his bedroom window, his sharp green eyes fixed on the Crystal Conservatory. Its glass panes gleamed with an almost ethereal light, yet Poirot's thoughts were far from serene. The whispers of unease from the previous evening, Clara's anxiety, Victor's urgency, Dr. Marsh's reserve, and Tom Wells' cryptic observation had set his little grey cells in motion. "Something is amiss, Hastings," he remarked as Captain Hastings joined him, still adjusting his tie. "The air, it is heavy with anticipation." "I do not like it." Hastings yawned, rubbing his eyes. "You start imagining things, Poirot. It's Sard's just a country house weekend. What could possibly go wrong?" Poirot's moustache twitched, but before he could reply, a piercing scream shattered the morning's quiet. It came from the direction of the conservatory, sharp and raw, cutting through the manor like a blade. Poirot's expression hardened, and he moved with surprising swiftness, Hastings trailing behind. They reached the conservatory to find Clara Hawthorne standing at the entrance, her face ashen, her hands clutching the iron frame. "Id Sepson's Uncle Reginald," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "He Seps. Oh, God, he Seps dead." Poirot stepped past her, his demeanor calm but commanding. The conservatory's interior was as lush as ever, but the scene at its heart was one of stark tragedy. Sir Reginald Hawthorne lay slumped beside the glass case, housing the aurum noctis, his white hair stark against the dark soil. His eyes, wide and unseeing, stared upward, and a faint froth clung to his lips. A single petal from the indigo orchid lay broken on the ground beside him, its golden flecks dulled by the shadow of death. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, kneeling beside the body. His gloved hands moved with precision, noting the rigidity of the limbs, the faint chemical scent in the air, and a shattered glass pane above, its jagged edges glinting in the sunlight. "This is no accident, Hastings. It is murder." Hastings, pale but resolute, joined him.
Murder? Are you sure, Poirot?
"Couldn't set it have been a heart attack or something natural." Poirot shook his head, his gaze fixed on the orchid. The froth, the scent, the petal, they tell a different story. And this glass, it is broken from the inside, yet the shards fall outward. Curious, Clara, still trembling, was joined by Victor, who pushed through the gathering crowd of guests. His face drained of color as he saw his Uncle Sept's body. "What Sept's happened?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "Who did this?" Dr. Evelyn Marsh appeared next, her expression unreadable, but her eyes darting to the orchid Sept's case. "Sir Reginald dead?" she said almost to herself. How could this happen?" Poirot rose, his presence commanding the chaotic scene. "Mademoiselle, messieurs, please, step back. The scene, it must remain untouched until the police arrive. Captain Hastings, kindly inform the butler to telephone for the authorities." Hastings nodded and hurried off, while Poirot turned his attention to the conservatory. He examined the glass case, noting that the aurum noctis appeared undisturbed, save for the broken petal, a small notebook, which he recalled seeing in Sir Reginald's hand the previous day, was nowhere to be found. His eyes scanned the surrounding plants, the soil, the pathways, searching for any trace of the intruder or the truth. Within the hour, Inspector Grayson, a sturdy man with a no-nonsense demeanor, arrived with 2 constables. His moustache rivaled Poirot's in size, though not in elegance, and his initial skepticism of the famous Belgian detective was evident. "Monsieur Poirot, is it?" he said, eyeing him. "I've heard of you, but this is a Kent matter, and I'll handle it if you don't mind." Poirot inclined his head, his smile polite but firm. "Of course, Inspector. But perhaps you will permit me to observe the little grey cells. They may offer some assistance." Grayson grunted, turning to the body. "Looks like poison, if you ask me. That froth sets a dead giveaway. And this orchid, could it be toxic?" Poirot Sip's eyes gleamed. "A question most pertinent, Inspector. The aurum noctis is rare, and its properties, they are not fully known. But the petal, it is broken deliberately, I think. A message, perhaps." The inspector raised an eyebrow but said nothing, directing his men to cordon off the area. Poirot, meanwhile, began questioning the guests, starting with Clara. Her eyes were red from crying, but she answered steadily. "I came to the conservatory early," she said, twisting a handkerchief. "Uncle liked to tend the plants at dawn. When I saw him, like that, I couldn't believe it." You saw no one else?" Clara hesitated, then shook her head. "No, no one." Poirot noted the pause, filing it away. He next approached Victor, who was pacing near the conservatory sipter's entrance. "A terrible thing, Monsieur Hawthorne," Poirot said. "Your uncle, he spoke of a great discovery. Do you know what it was?"
Victor Sip's jaw tightened.
"He was always going on about his plants, the orchid mostly. Said it was worth a fortune. I didn't pay much mind." Poirot Sip's gaze was piercing. "And last night after dinner, where were you?" "In my room," Victor replied quickly. "Went straight to bed after that blackout nonsense." Dr. Marsh, when questioned, was evasive. "I was in my room as well," she said, her voice cool. "Sir Reginald Sept's work was competitive. He had rivals, you know." "Rivals?" Poirot echoed. "Such as yourself, perhaps." Her eyes flashed, but she said nothing more. Poirot let her go, his mind turning to Tom Wells, the groundskeeper who hovered at the edge of the scene. "Monsieur Wells," Poirot called, beckoning him over. "You spoke of lights in the conservatory. Did you see anything this morning?" Tom shifted uncomfortably. "Not this morning, sir, but last night, after the blackout, I checked the grounds, saw a shadow moving inside, but it was gone before I got close." Poirot nodded, his thoughts racing. The broken petal, the missing notebook, the shattered glass, The shadow, they were pieces of a puzzle, and he was determined to fit them together. As the police continued their work, he stepped back into the conservatory, his eyes lingering on the aurum noctis. "The truth, it hides in the shimmer of glass," he murmured. "But Hercule Poirot, he will find it." Chapter 5. The Shadow of Envy. The morning light, filtered through the crystal panes of Glastonbury Manor's conservatory, cast a cold sheen over the scene of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's murder. Hercule Poirot stood near the cordoned-off area, his sharp green eyes tracing the outline of the aurum noctis in its glass case. The broken petal, the shattered glass pane, and the missing notebook gnawed at his mind, each a fragment of a larger truth. The air was thick with the scent of earth and suspicion, and Poirot knew that the key to the mystery lay in the hearts of those who had dined so elegantly the night before. Captain Hastings, rubbing his hands against the morning chill, joined Poirot near the orchid seps case. "Grim business, this," he said, glancing at the spot where Sir Reginald had been found. "Inspector Grayson seems convinced it's poison, but who sapped do such a thing, and why?" Poirot's moustache curved slightly. "Why Hastings? That is the question that unlocks all others. Envy, greed, betrayal, these are the shadows that darken Glastonbury Manor, and today we shall shine a light upon them." The Manor's drawing-room, where the guests had gathered after the police permitted them to leave the conservatory, was a study in strained civility. Clara Hawthorne sat by the fireplace, her delicate hands clasped tightly, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. Victor Hawthorne paced near the windows, his polished demeanor fraying at the edges. Dr. Evelyn Marsh, seated with a notebook of her own, scribbled furiously, her expression closed. The other guests, Colonel Rutherford and the local gentry, murmured among themselves, casting uneasy glances at the family. Poirot, with his characteristic blend of charm and authority, began his inquiries. He approached Clara first, his tone gentle but probing. "Mademoiselle Hawthorne, your uncle's death. It is a great shock, but perhaps you can assist Hercule Poirot. Sir Reginald, he spoke of a great discovery. Did he share its nature with you?" Clara hesitated, her fingers twisting a lace handkerchief. He mentioned the orchid, the aurum noctis. He said it was more than just a flower, that it could change everything, but he was secretive, even with me. He's been talking about changing his will, though." Poirot's eyes narrowed. His will, and who, pray, stood to benefit? Clara Sepp's gaze flickered to Victor, then away. He wanted to fund botanical research, to create a legacy. He thought Victor was reckless with money. He planned to leave more to charity, and perhaps to me, but nothing was settled. Poirot nodded, filing the information away. He turned to Victor, who had stopped pacing to listen. "Monsieur Hawthorne, your sister speaks of a will. You were aware of your Uncle Set's intentions." Victor's jaw tightened, but his smile remained. Uncle Reginald was always changing his mind. He'd threatened to cut me out one day, then call me his heir the next. I didn't take it seriously. I've got debts, sure, but I'd never— He trailed off, his eyes darting to the floor. "Never what, monsieur?" Poirot pressed, his voice soft but insistent. "Never harm the man who held your future in his hands." Victor flushed. "That sip's absurd. I was in my room all night. You can ask anyone." Poirot inclined his head, his expression unreadable. "And yet the truth, it is not always what we claim. The little grey cells, they will find it." Next, Poirot approached Dr. Evelyn Marsh, who had closed her notebook and was watching him with wary eyes. "Dr. Marsh," he began, "your expertise in botany, it is most impressive. The aurum noctis, it is a plant of great rarity. Did Sir Reginald consult you on its cultivation?" Dr. Marsh, Saunders' lips thinned. "He did not. We disagreed on methods. Sir Reginald was possessive of his discoveries, almost paranoid. He accused me of trying to steal his work, but I assure you my research is my own." Poirot's gaze lingered on her notebook. "And this research, it involves plants of a similar nature, perhaps those with toxic properties." Her eyes flashed, but she answered calmly. My work focuses on medicinal plants. Toxicity is a byproduct, not a goal. If you usurp suggesting I poisoned Sir Reginald, usurp mistaken. Poirot smiled faintly. I suggest nothing, madame. I merely observe. As the interviews continued, Poirot's attention was drawn to a small detail from the police's preliminary findings, shared reluctantly by Inspector Grayson. The froth on Sir Reginald's lips suggested a fast-acting poison, likely ingested or inhaled, and traces of a rare alkaloid had been found on the broken petal of the aurum noctis. The notebook, still missing, was rumoured to contain Sir Reginald's notes on the orchids' properties, notes that could be worth a fortune to the right buyer. Poirot returned to the conservatory where the police had finished their initial sweep. He examined the shattered glass pane again, noting its position relative to the orchids case. "Curious," he murmured, his fingers brushing the jagged edge. "The glass, it is broken from the inside, yet the shards suggest an external force. A contradiction, Hastings." Hastings frowned, peering at the pane. "You think someone staged it, to make it look like an outsider did it?" Poirot nodded. "Precisely, the murderer. He is clever, but not clever enough to deceive Hercule Poirot." As they left the conservatory, Poirot overheard a hushed conversation between Clara and Victor near the Manor-sept's entrance. "You should have told him," Clara whispered, her voice trembling. "If he finds out." "He once did." Victor snapped, then softened. "Just keep quiet, Clara, for both our sakes." Poirot, unseen in the shadow of a pillar, made no move to interrupt. Instead he turned to Hastings, his voice low. "The shadow of envy, it falls heavily here. The niece, the nephew, the botanist, each has a motive, each has a secret. But which one, I wonder, has the courage to kill?" Hastings shook his head. "You stir making my head spin, Poirot. Concept it just be a simple crime." Poirot's sifter's eyes gleamed. "Simple? Non, mon ami. At Glastonbury Manor, nothing is simple. But the truth, it will emerge, like a flower from the soil." As the day wore on, Poirot's mind churned with possibilities, each clue a thread in the tapestry of murder. The aurum noctis, the missing notebook, the broken glass, they were signposts, and he would follow them to their end. Chapter 6. The Gardener-sept's Secret. The afternoon sun hung low over Glastonbury Manor, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns and gilding the Crystal Conservatory with a warm, deceptive glow. Hercule Poirot, his patent leather shoes crunching softly on the gravel path, made his way toward the gardener's shed, a modest structure tucked behind a row of yew hedges. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne had cast a pall over the estate, and Poirot's little grey cells were restless, seeking the truth hidden among the suspect's tangled motives. Captain Hastings, walking beside him, adjusted his hat against the breeze. "I say, Poirot, why the sudden interest in the groundskeeper? Tom Wells seems a decent sort, hardly the type to go poisoning his employer." Poirot sipped, moustache twitched, a faint smile playing beneath it. "The decent sort, Hastings. They are often the most revealing. Monsieur Wells, he sees much and says little, but today I think he will say more." The shed's door was ajar, and Tom Wells stood within, polishing a pair of shears with a rag. His weathered face, lined by years of sun and toil, betrayed a flicker of unease as Poirot and Hastings approached. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain," he said, setting the shears down. "Didn't expect to see you here. Something you need." Poirot's eyes, sharp as ever, took in the shed's interior. Tools hung neatly on hooks, pots stacked in rows, a faint scent of soil and linseed oil. "Monsieur Wells," he began, his tone courteous but firm, "you are the eyes of Glastonbury Manor, non. The conservatory, the gardens. They are your domain, and yet a murder has occurred under your watch. I wish to understand what you have seen." Tom sipped hands, paused, the rag twisting in his grip. "I told you before, sir, lights in the conservatory, a shadow moving. I don't set no more than that." Poirot inclined his head, stepping closer. "But perhaps you know more than you think. The night of the murder you spoke of a shadow after the blackout, and last night you saw Dr. Evelyn Marsh in the conservatory. Did you not?" Tom Sept's eyes widened, then narrowed. Who told you that? Poirot smiled faintly. No one, monsieur. It is the little grey cells, they observe. They deduce. Your hesitation when I asked about the lights, your glance toward Dr. Marsh during the police's arrival, it betrays a knowledge. Tell me, what did you see? Tom hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor. All right, sir. I saw her, Dr. Marsh, late last night, near midnight. She was by the Aurum Noctis case, holding a torch. Looked like she was studying something, but she left quick when she heard me coming. I didn't think much of it then. But now, with Sir Reginald dead. Poirot nodded, his mind racing, and this was after the blackout. You are certain? Aye, Tom replied, his voice low. The manor was dark, but the conservatory sips as glass. It catches any light. I saw her clear as day. Hastings frowned, crossing his arms. Why didn't you tell the police, man? That's suspicious behavior, surely. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Marsh, she said, Sir Scientist, like Sir Reginald, thought maybe she had permission. And, well, I got my own reasons for keeping quiet. Poirot's cyst's eyes gleamed. Reasons? Come, Monsieur Wells, the time for secrets is past. What do you hide? Tom sighed, leaning against the shed's wall. It's not what you think, sir. I've been with the Hawthorns 20 years. Sir Reginald, he trusted me with more than just the gardens. There's a hidden compartment in the conservatory, behind a panel near the orchid case. He kept rare seeds there, valuable ones, worth more than my wages for a lifetime. He showed it to me years ago, said it was his insurance. Poirot's interest sharpened. And this compartment, have you checked it since the murder? Tom nodded, his face grim. This morning, before the police cordoned it off, it set's empty, sir. Whatever was there, set's gone. Poirot exchanged a glance with Hastings, his mind weaving connections. The missing notebook, the broken petal, the empty compartment, each was a piece of the puzzle, and Tom Wells had just handed him a crucial one. You have done well to tell me, monsieur, Poirot said. But tell me, who else knew of this compartment? Only Sir Reginald, far as I know, Tom replied. Maybe Clara. She was close to him, helped with the plants sometimes. But he was careful. Didn't Sirs trust many. Poirot thanked Tom and led Hastings back toward the manor, his thoughts churning. The seeds, Hastings, he murmured. They are the key. I think. The Aurum Noctis, the notebook, the compartment, they are all linked. And Dr. Marsh, her nocturnal visit, it suggests a purpose. Hastings scratched his chin. You think she stole the seeds, but why kill Sir Reginald? And what about that broken glass pane? It doesn't add up. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Not yet, mon ami, but the truth, it is like a plant. It grows slowly, but it will bloom. Back in the manor, Poirot sought out Inspector Grayson, who was reviewing notes in the library. Inspector, Poirot said, a small matter. The conservatory has your team examined the walls for hidden panels. Grayson raised an eyebrow. Panels? No, but we've got our hands full with the poison angle. That alkaloid on the petal, it's spurs rare, derived from a plant native to Borneo, same as the orchid. We're waiting on the coroner's report. Poirot nodded, keeping Tom Sipt's revelation to himself for now. He returned to the drawing room, where Clara sat alone, staring out at the conservatory. Mademoiselle, he said gently, your uncle. He trusted you with his plants. Did he ever speak of a hidden place in the conservatory? Clara Sipt's eyes widened, but she shook her head. No, no, he didn't say. Why do you ask? Poirot studied her, noting the tremor in her voice. No reason, mademoiselle, merely a thought. As evening approached, Poirot stood once more at the conservatory's entrance, the glass panes now dark against the twilight. The shadow of envy, the gardener's secret, they were threads in a tapestry of deceit, and he was determined to unravel it. The truth, it is close, he murmured to Hastings, who had joined him, but it is guarded by lies, and Hercule Poirot must tread carefully. Chapter 7. The Scent of Deception. The late afternoon light filtered through the crystal panes of Glastonbury Manor's conservatory, casting a mosaic of shadows across the lush foliage. Hercule Poirot stood near the glass case of the Aurum Noctis, his keen senses attuned to the scene of Sir Reginald Hawthorne's murder. The broken petal, the shattered glass pane, the empty hidden compartment, and the missing notebook formed a constellation of clues. But it was a faint, almost imperceptible odor that now held Poirot's attention, a chemical tang, sharp and unnatural, lingering near the orchid's case. Captain Hastings, ever loyal but slightly impatient, stood nearby, fanning himself with his hat. "I don't know how you stand this humidity, Poirot," he remarked. "And what sips that smell? Something off in here, isn't it?" Poirot's eyes gleamed, his moustache twitching with interest. "Précisément, mon ami. The smell, it is not of the earth or the flowers. It is a clue, Hastings, and one that may lead us to the heart of this crime." The conservatory, though cordoned off by Inspector Grayson's men, had been opened briefly for Poirot's inspection, a concession granted after his persistent yet polite insistence. He knelt near the spot where Sir Reginald's body had lain, his gloved fingers hovering just above the soil. The chemical scent was stronger here, mingling with the earthy musk of the plants. "It is not the poison itself," Poirot murmured, "but something used to mask it, perhaps, or to deliver it." Hastings frowned, peering at the orchid. "You think the poison came from the Aurum Noctis? That broken petal, Inspector Grayson said it had traces of an alkaloid." The Poirot rose, brushing his hands together. "The petal, yes, it is significant, but the scent, this is something else. We must seek its source, and I suspect it will point to one who knows the secrets of plants." Leaving the conservatory, Poirot led Hastings to the village chemist, a small shop, a mile from Glastonbury Manor. The chemist, Mr. Hargrove, a wiry man with spectacles perched on his nose, greeted them with curiosity. "Monsieur Poirot, is it? Heard you're poking about the Hawthorne business. Terrible thing, that." "Indeed, Monsieur Hargrove," Poirot replied, his tone smooth. "I seek information about a poison, an alkaloid perhaps, derived from a rare plant, and a chemical, one with a sharp, unnatural scent. Have you supplied such a thing to anyone at the manor?" Hargrove's brow furrowed. "An alkaloid? Well, now that's specific. There's a rare one derived from a Borneo plant, used in minute doses for research. Toxic, in larger amounts, mind you, stops the heart in minutes. As for a chemical scent, could be a solvent, maybe ether or chloroform used in extractions, but I've not sold anything like that recently. Sir Reginald, he bought his own supplies, had a laboratory in the manor." Poirot Sipter's eyes narrowed. "A laboratory, and who had access to it?" "Only Sir Reginald, far as I know," Hargrove said. "Though Dr. Marsh, she said's been in the village asking about plant extracts. Said it was for her research, but she didn't buy anything from me." Thanking the chemist, Poirot and Hastings returned to the manor, where the guests were gathered in the drawing-room, their faces a study in unease. Dr. Evelyn Marsh sat apart, her notebook closed, her expression guarded. Poirot approached her, his demeanor polite but unyielding. "Dr. Marsh," he began, "you are a woman of science, the Aurum Noctis. It is a plant of great interest. Tell me, have you worked with its properties? A poison, perhaps, or a chemical to extract it?" Dr. Marsh Siftz's eyes flashed with indignation. "Are you accusing me, Monsieur Poirot? My research is medicinal, not criminal. Sir Reginald Siftz's orchid was his obsession, not mine. If anything, my work was stolen. Notes I kept on rare plants gone from my room last week." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "Stolen? And you did not report this?" "I thought it was Sir Reginald," she admitted, her voice low. "He was paranoid, always accusing me of spying. I didn't set one to escalate things." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing her words. "And last night in the conservatory, what were you seeking?" Dr. Marsh stiffened. I was checking my own samples. I have plants there too, you know." Poirot Sip's smile was enigmatic. "Of course, madam, but the truth, it has a way of revealing itself." As he moved away, Poirot's thoughts turned to Clara and Victor, whose whispered arguments had not gone unnoticed. He found Clara in the library, staring at a photograph of Sir Reginald. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "your Uncle Sit's laboratory, did you ever visit it?" Clara shook her head, her eyes distant. "No, he kept it locked. He didn't trust anyone, not even me. He said his work was too important." "And you, mademoiselle, did you know of the hidden compartment in the conservatory?" Her breath caught, but she recovered quickly. "Compartment? No, I don't know anything about that." Poirot studied her, noting the flicker of fear in her eyes. He thanked her and sought out Victor, who was in the billiard room, idly striking balls across the table. "Monsieur Hawthorne," Poirot said, "your Uncle Sip's laboratory, did he share its secrets with you?" "What?" Victor snorted, setting down his cue. "Hardly. He thought I was a wastrel, kept his precious experiments under lock and key. Why do you ask?" "The poison," Poirot said simply. It was sophisticated, requiring knowledge, and a chemical scent was detected at the scene.
You have no such knowledge?
Victor Roussel's laugh was brittle. "Me? I sup. No chemist. Ask Dr. Marsh. She sups, the one with the fancy degrees." As evening fell, Poirot returned to the conservatory, the chemical scent still lingering in his memory. He examined the area near the orchid's case, his fingers tracing the soil. A faint residue, barely visible, caught his eye. A crystalline powder, almost imperceptible against the earth. He collected a sample in a handkerchief, his mind racing. "The scent of deception," he murmured to Hastings, who had followed him. "It is not just the poison, but the means to deliver it. Someone has been clever, but Hercule Poirot is cleverer still." Back in the manor, Poirot overheard Clara speaking to Tom Wells near the terrace. "You shouldn't have said anything," she whispered, her voice urgent. "If they find out—" "They won't stat," Tom replied, his tone soothing. "Trust me, Clara." Poirot stepped back, unseen, his thoughts swirling. The laboratory, the stolen notes, the chemical scent, the hidden compartment, the threads were converging, and the shadow of envy loomed larger than ever. "The truth, it is near," he said to Hastings, his eyes gleaming. "But it is cloaked in deception, and we must peel away the layers to find it." Chapter 8. The Tangled Vine. The evening shadows stretched long across Glastonbury Manor, their fingers creeping over the polished floors of the drawing-room where the guests had gathered after a tense day. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne hung over the estate like a storm cloud, and Hercule Poirot, seated in a high-backed chair, observed the assembled company with the precision of a chess master. The chemical scent, the empty hidden compartment, the missing notebook, and the broken petal of the aurum noctis were pieces of a puzzle that refused to align, yet Poirot's little grey cells were undeterred. Captain Hastings, standing by the fireplace, whispered, "I don't like the mood here, Poirot. Everyone suds on edge, and that Inspector Grayson sud's been poking about like a bloodhound. He sud's got his eye on Victor, you know." Poirot's mustache twitched, his eyes narrowing. "The inspector, he sees what is obvious, Hastings, but the obvious, it is often a distraction. We must look deeper into the tangled vine of human motives." As if on cue, Inspector Grayson entered the room, his heavy footsteps announcing his purpose. Behind him, a constable escorted Victor Hawthorne, whose face was pale but defiant, his wrists bound by handcuffs. A gasp rippled through the guests. Clara Hawthorne clutched her handkerchief. "Doctor," Evelyn Marsh froze mid-sentence, and Colonel Rutherford muttered an oath. "Victor Hawthorne," Grayson declared, his voice stern, "you are under arrest for the murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne. We found evidence, a forged financial document in your room, suggesting you stood to lose everything if your uncle changed his will." Victor Sed's eyes blazed. "That's nonsense. I didn't forge anything, and I didn't kill him. It's got the wrong man, Inspector." Clara rose, her voice trembling. "This is a mistake. Victor couldn't do this. Tell them, Monsieur Poirot." Poirot remained seated, his expression unreadable. "Inspector," he said calmly. "The document, it is compelling, oui, but may I inquire, where was it found, and by whom?" Grayson Sepp's mustache bristled, but he answered, "In a drawer in Mr. Hawthorne Sepp's room under some papers. My constable found it this afternoon. It's Sepp's a loan agreement falsified to make it look like Sir Reginald owed Victor money. Clear motive, if you ask me." Poirot nodded slowly. "Clear, perhaps, but the truth, it is rarely so simple." "I would see this document, if you permit." Grayson hesitated, then signaled to the constable, who produced a folded paper. Poirot examined it, his gloved fingers tracing the ink. The signature, purportedly Sir Reginald's, was a near-perfect imitation, but to Poirot's trained eye, the pen strokes lacked the flourish of the original. "Interesting," he murmured, returning the paper. "But I advise caution, Inspector. The vine of this crime. It is tangled indeed." As Victor was led away, protesting his innocence, Poirot turned his attention to Clara, who was now weeping softly. "Mademoiselle," he said gently, "your brother, he is in a difficult position, but you believe him innocent. Why?" Clara wiped her eyes, her voice unsteady. "Victor Sett's reckless. Yes, but he loved Uncle Reginald in his way. He wouldn't kill him. Not for money. And there Sett's someone else who had more reason." Poirot Sepp's eyes gleamed. "Someone else? Speak, mademoiselle." Clara glanced nervously at the door, then lowered her voice. "Tom Wells, the groundskeeper. He Sett's been close to me, more than he should. I overheard him talking about the conservatory Sett's secrets, about things he shouldn't Sett's know. I think he Sett's hiding something." Poirot Sepp's mind raced, recalling Tom Sepp's revelation about the hidden compartment. "Merci, mademoiselle. Your candor. It is most helpful." Seeking to test alibis, Poirot gathered the guests' accounts of their movements on the night of the murder. Dr. Marsh claimed she had retired to her room after the blackout, reading until dawn. Colonel Rutherford said he'd been in the billiard room, smoking and playing a solitary game. The other guests offered vague accounts, but none contradicted the timeline, except for one discrepancy. Clara mentioned seeing a light in the conservatory after midnight, which conflicted with Tom's claim of seeing Dr. Marsh there. Poirot found Tom in the gardens, tending a rosebush with a distracted air. "Monsieur Wells," he said, "Mademoiselle Clara speaks of a light in the conservatory after midnight. You saw Dr. Marsh there. Oui, but you did not mention a connection to Clara herself." Tom Sepp's hands stilled, his face tightening. "Clara? She Sepp's got no part in this. I saw what I saw. Dr. Marsh, snooping about. I didn't Sepp's want to drag Clara into it. That's Sepp's all." Poirot studied him, noting the flush in his cheeks. "You care for her, non? A romantic attachment, perhaps?" Tom Sepp's jaw clenched, but he nodded. "Aye, sir. We stuff been close these past months, but I Sepp's never hurt Sir Reginald, and neither would she." Poirot Sepp's gaze softened, but his mind was relentless. "And the compartment, monsieur, its contents were valuable. Did you ever see the notebook Sir Reginald kept?" Tom shook his head. "Never. He was private about it, kept it in his study or his pocket, mostly." Returning to the manor, Poirot reconstructed the timeline in his mind. The blackout, the shadow in the conservatory, the chemical scent, the forged document, all pointed to a calculated crime, but the motives remained elusive. Was Victor framed to protect another? Did Dr. Marsh's stolen notes conceal a darker truth? And what of Clara and Tom, their secret bond, a thread in the tangled vine? As night fell, Poirot stood on the terrace, the conservatory glowing faintly in the moonlight. Hastings joined him, his expression troubled. "You don't think Victor did it, do you, Poirot? That document, it Sett's too convenient." Poirot nodded, his eyes fixed on the glass structure. "Precisement, Hastings. The vine, it twists and turns, hiding the truth. But Hercule Poirot, he will cut through the tangle, and the murderer will be revealed." The aurum noctis, silent in its case, seemed to watch, its golden flecks a reminder of the stakes in this deadly game. Chapter 9. The Hidden Blossom. The twilight at Glastonbury Manor draped the estate in a veil of soft purple, the Crystal Conservatory reflecting the fading light like a prism of secrets. Hercule Poirot, his mind a whirl of deductions, stood in the manor's library, his gloved fingers tracing the spine of a botanical tome. The arrest of Victor Hawthorne had stirred the household, but Poirot was unconvinced of his guilt. The forged document, the chemical scent, the empty hidden compartment, and the broken petal of the aurum noctis pointed to a more intricate plot, one that required a mastermind's touch. Captain Hastings, pacing near the fireplace, broke the silence. "I say, Poirot, this business with Victor doesn't sit right. The document, it sits too neat, like someone wanted it found. And what about that notebook Sir Reginald always carried? It sits still missing." Poirot's eyes gleamed, his moustache curving slightly. "Précisément, mon ami. The notebook, it is the key to the hidden blossom of this mystery, and I believe it is closer than we think." Determined to uncover new evidence, Poirot requested permission from Inspector Grayson to search the guests' rooms, a request granted with reluctance after Poirot's gentle insistence on the need for thoroughness. Accompanied by Hastings and a constable, he began with Dr. Evelyn Marsh's quarters, suspecting her expertise and nocturnal visit to the conservatory held significance. Dr. Marsh's room was orderly, her belongings meticulously arranged, books on botany, vials of plant extracts, and a locked suitcase under the bed. Poirot, with the constable's approval, opened the suitcase, revealing a stack of research papers, and tucked beneath them a small leather-bound notebook. Its cover bore Sir Reginald's initials, and its pages were filled with meticulous notes on the aurum noctis, including diagrams of its structure and references to a revolutionary plant-based medicine. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, flipping through the pages. "This is no mere gardener Septua's journal. It speaks of a compound derived from the orchid, with properties to heal or to kill." Hastings peered over his shoulder, his brow furrowed. "So this is what Sir Reginald was working on. A medicine? But why hide it?" Poirot's gaze was distant. "Because, Hastings, such a discovery is worth a fortune, and a motive for murder. But how did it come to be in Dr. Marsh's possession?" They summoned Dr. Marsh, who entered the room with a guarded expression, her eyes narrowing at the sight of the notebook in Poirot's hands. "That, Sir Reginald Sips," she said, her voice sharp. "How did you find it?" Poirot's tone was calm but piercing. "In your suitcase, madame. A curious place for such an item, non? You claimed your own notes were stolen, yet here we find Sir Reginald Sips. Explain, if you please." Dr. Marsh's composure faltered, her hands clenching. "I didn't steal it. I found it in the conservatory near the orchid case, after the blackout. I thought someone planted it there to frame me. I took it to protect myself, to study it. Sir Reginald's research overlapped with mine. He was working on the same compound, but he refused to collaborate." Poirot's eyes studied her, searching for the truth behind her words. "And you did not inform the police? A dangerous choice, madam, for one who claims innocence." "I was afraid," she admitted, her voice low. "Sir Reginald accused me of espionage. If I turned it in, they said think I killed him to steal his work." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing her story. "And the chemical scent in the conservatory. Ether, perhaps? You are familiar with such substances, oui?" Dr. Marsh stiffened. "As a botanist, yes, but I didn't use it to kill him. Someone else must have." Leaving Dr. Marsh under the constable's watch, Poirot and Hastings returned to the library, where Poirot examined the notebook further. The handwriting was unmistakably Sir Reginald's, but a few pages bore annotations in a different hand, smaller, more angular, with a hurried quality. "Curious," Poirot murmured. "A second hand, perhaps a collaborator or a conspirator." Hastings scratched his chin. "You think someone else was working with Sir Reginald, or against him?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Both, perhaps. The notebook. It speaks of a partnership, but also of betrayal. We must compare this handwriting." They sought out Clara, who was in the drawing-room, her face pale as she stared at the conservatory through the window. "Mademoiselle," Poirot said gently, "your Uncle Sep's notebook. It has been found, but there are notes in another hand. May I see a sample of your writing?" Clara Sipt's eyes widened, but she complied, scribbling a few lines on a sheet of paper. Poirot compared it to the notebook, his brow furrowing. "Non, it is not yours. But you knew of his work, did you not?" Clara hesitated, then nodded. "He told me a little about a medicine that could save lives. He was excited, but also afraid. He said someone was after his secrets." "And who might that be?" Poirot pressed. I don't know," she stammered, her eyes darting away. "Maybe Dr. Marsh. She was always asking questions." Poirot thanked her, his thoughts turning to Tom Wells. He found the groundskeeper in the gardens, pruning a hedge with mechanical precision. "Monsieur Wells," Poirot said, "the notebook of Sir Reginald. It has been found, but it contains notes in another hand. You worked closely with him. Did he ever speak of a collaborator?" Tom Sipt's hands paused, his expression guarded. "He mentioned working with someone years ago, but it ended badly. Didn't Sept say who? He kept that notebook close, said it was his legacy." As night fell, Poirot stood on the terrace, the conservatory steps glow a beacon in the darkness. Hastings joined him, his voice low. "This notebook business, Poirot, it's Sep's a game-changer. If Dr. Marsh is telling the truth, someone Sep's setting her up. But who?" Poirot's gaze was fixed on the glass structure. "The hidden blossom, Hastings. It is not just the orchid, but the truth itself. Someone has woven a web of deception, and the notebook is its center. But Hercule Poirot, he will find the spider." The Aurum Noctis, silent in its case, seemed to pulse with secrets, its golden flecks a silent challenge to the detective's resolve. Chapter 10. The Crack in the Glass. The moon hung high over Glastonbury Manor, its silver light casting an ethereal glow through the Crystal Conservatory's panes, where Hercule Poirot stood poised like a conductor before an orchestra. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne had woven a tapestry of deceit, and Poirot's little grey cells were now attuned to a critical clue, the shattered glass pane above the Aurum Noctis case. The notebook's discovery, Victor's arrest, and the chemical scent had deepened the mystery, but the glass Poirot sensed held the key to the murderer's method. Captain Hastings, standing near the conservatory Sept's entrance, adjusted his coat against the evening chill. "I say, Poirot, this reenactment idea of yours, it Sept's a bit theatrical, isn't it? What do you hope to prove?" Poirot Sept's eyes gleamed, his moustache curving with determination. "Theatrical, perhaps, mon ami, but necessary. The crack in the glass. It is not what it seems. By recreating the night of the murder, we shall see what the murderer wished us to see and what they did not." Inspector Grayson, though skeptical, had agreed to Poirot's request, and the key suspects, Clara Hawthorne, Dr. Evelyn Marsh, and Tom Wells, were summoned to the conservatory, along with the other guests for context. Victor, still under arrest, was brought under guard, his expression a mix of defiance and despair. The police had cordoned off the crime scene, but Poirot had secured access for this experiment, insisting on precision. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice carrying through the humid air, "we are here to reconstruct the events of Sir Reginald's death. Each of you will take your position as it was after the blackout, before the body was found. I wish to see the movements, the opportunities, and the truth hidden in the glass." Clara, her face pale, stood near the palm cluster where she claimed to have been after dinner. Dr. Marsh positioned herself by a fern, her eyes wary, insisting she had returned to the manor. Tom Wells hovered near the entrance, his hands fidgeting, while Victor was placed near the orchid case, as he admitted to passing through the conservatory before retiring. The other guests filled the background, their murmurs hushed. Poirot, with Hastings' Sept assistance, dimmed the conservatory searchlights to mimic the blackout, using a lantern to simulate the moonlight. "The blackout occurred at approximately 10:30, he said. "Sir Reginald was last seen in the dining room. Who entered the conservatory after?" No one spoke, but Poirot's sister's gaze lingered on Dr. Marsh. Madame, you were seen here by Monsieur Wells near midnight. Demonstrate your path. Dr. Marshsip's lips thinned, but she complied, walking to the aurum noctis case, her movements stiff. I checked my samples, she said, then left. I saw no one. Poirot nodded, then turned to Tom. Monsieur Wells, you saw a shadow, oui? Show us where. Tom pointed to the case, then traced a path to the shattered pane. It moved fast toward the glass. I thought it was an intruder. Poirot approached the pane, its jagged edges catching the lantern's light. He had studied it before, noting the shard's outward fall, suggesting an external break, yet the inner cracks hinted at force from within. Curious, he murmured, tapping the frame. The glass, it tells a story. Inspector, may I have a small hammer? Grayson, frowning, handed him a tool from the police kit. Poirot struck the pane lightly, observing the fracture pattern. See, Hastings, the cracks radiate inward, but the shards are outside. This was staged to suggest an outsider century. Hastings gasped. You mean the murderer was already inside? But who? Poirot-Sipt's eyes swept the group. Someone who knew the conservatory sipped secrets. The aurum noctis was poisoned, its petal broken deliberately. The notebook found in Dr. Marsh-Sipt's room speaks of a medicine and a toxin, but the glass, it was broken to mislead us. Clara Sepsa's voice trembled. You assert saying it was one of us, but why? Poirot-Sipt's gaze softened. Why, mademoiselle? Envy, greed, betrayal, these are the roots of murder. Let us test another moment. Monsieur Victor, you passed through here. Show us. Victor, his hands still cuffed, walked to the case, his movements jerky. I came through after dinner before the blackout. I didn't touch anything. Poirot watched closely, noting Victor Sept's proximity to the hidden compartment Tom had described. And you saw no one? Not even Sir Reginald? Victor shook his head. No one. It was empty. Poirot turned to the group, his voice rising. The blackout gave the murderer time to act. The poison delivered by a chemical ether perhaps required precision. The glass was broken afterward, to suggest an intruder. But the notebook, it was left in Dr. Marsh-Sipt's room. Why? Dr. Marsh-Sipt's eyes flashed. I told you, I was framed. Someone planted it. Poirot nodded. Perhaps, or perhaps you are not the only one with secrets. Mademoiselle Clara, you spoke of a light after midnight. Where were you? Clara flushed, her hands twisting. I was on the terrace, looking at the conservatory. I couldn't sleep. And Monsieur Wells, Poirot continued. You and Mademoiselle Clara, you are close, non? Did you meet that night? Tom Sipt's face reddened, but he nodded. Aye, sir. We talked briefly. Outside. But we didn't see the murder. Poirot's mind raced, the reenactment revealing gaps in the timeline. The glass pane, staged to mislead, suggested a calculated mind. The notebook's annotations hinted at a second conspirator, and Clara's light, Tom's shadow, Dr. Marsh's presence. They formed a web of half-truths. As the reenactment ended, Poirot addressed Grayson. Inspector, the glass. It is a lie. The murderer was inside, not out, and the poison, it was no accident. We must search Sir Reginald Sells' laboratory again. Grayson grunted, but agreed. As the group dispersed, Poirot lingered by the aurum noctis, its golden flecks glinting. Hastings joined him, his voice low. You stir onto something, Poirot. That glass business, it changes everything. Poirot-Sipt's eyes were distant. The crack in the glass, Hastings. It is the crack in the murderer Sipt's plan. They are clever, but Hercule Poirot is cleverer. The truth, it is near. The conservatory, silent now, held its secrets close, but Poirot's resolve burned brighter than the moonlight. Chapter 11. The Thorn of Truth. The drawing-room of Glastonbury Manor was steeped in a heavy silence, broken only by the crackle of the fire in the hearth. The hour was late, and the guests, summoned by Hercule Poirot, sat in a semicircle of unease, their faces illuminated by the flickering flames. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne had cast a shadow over the estate, and Poirot, standing before them with the poise of a maestro, was ready to pierce that shadow with the thorn of truth. The notebook, the chemical scent, the staged glass pane, and the aurum noctis's broken petal had led him close to the killer, and now he would provoke the final revelation. Captain Hastings, seated near the door, leaned forward, his voice a whisper. "This is it, isn't it, Poirot? You cert going to name the murderer?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed, his moustache curving faintly. "Not yet, mon ami. The truth, it is like a rose. It must be coaxed to bloom. Tonight we shall prick the conscience of the guilty." Inspector Grayson stood by the window, his arms crossed, his skepticism tempered by curiosity. Victor Hawthorne, released from custody pending further evidence, sat beside Clara, his jaw tight. Evelyn Marsh clutched her notebook, her expression guarded, while Tom Wells hovered near the back, his weathered hands clasped. The other guests, Colonel Rutherford and the local gentry, watched with bated breath. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding, "the murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne is a crime of calculation, woven with threads of envy, greed, and betrayal. But the murderer, they have made mistakes, and Hercule Poirot has seen them." A murmur rippled through the room, and Clara's hands tightened on her handkerchief. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the crowd. "Let us begin with the evidence. The aurum noctis, its petal broken, bore a rare alkaloid poison, delivered with precision, a chemical scent. Ether, perhaps, lingered at the scene, suggesting a method to subdue or mask. The glass pane, shattered to suggest an intruder, was broken from within, and the notebook found in Dr. Marsh's room spoke of a medicine and a toxin. Dr. Marsh sits, eyes flashed. "I told you I was framed. I found that notebook in the conservatory." Poirot nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Perhaps, madame, but your presence there at midnight, seen by Monsieur Wells, raises questions. You claim to protect your research, yet you hid Sir Reginald Sepp's notes. Why?" "I was afraid," she insisted, her voice rising. "Sir Reginald Sepp's accusations made me a target." Poirot turned to Victor, whose face was pale. "Monsieur Hawthorne, a forged document in your room suggested motive, debts, a threatened inheritance. Yet the signature, it was too perfect, as if placed to be found. Who wished to see you blamed?" Victor shook his head, his voice hoarse. Clara reached for his hand, her eyes welling. "Please, Monsieur Poirot, Victor Sepp's innocent. You must believe him." Poirot Sepp's gaze softened, but his words were sharp. "Mademoiselle Clara, your loyalty is admirable, but you too have secrets. Your connection to Monsieur Wells, it is more than friendship, and the light you saw in the conservatory. Why were you on the terrace so late?" Clara flushed, her voice trembling. I couldn't sleep. Tom and I, we set her engaged, but we kept it quiet. Uncle Reginald wouldn't have approved. I saw the light, but I didn't see who it was." Tom stepped forward, his face resolute. "She said telling the truth, sir. We met outside, talked a bit. We had nothing to do with the murder." Poirot Sepp's eyes lingered on Tom, noting his protective stance, and the hidden compartment, Monsieur Wells, emptied of its seeds. "You knew of it, yet said nothing until pressed. Why?" Tom Sepp's jaw tightened. "I was loyal to Sir Reginald. I didn't want his secrets spread about." Poirot paced, his hands clasped behind his back. The notebook, it bore another hand. Annotations, hurried, not Sir Reginald Sells. A collaborator, perhaps, or a thief. And the chemical scent, it suggests a laboratory where Sir Reginald worked alone, or did he? A gasp escaped Clara, and Victor's eyes darted to Dr. Marsh. Poirot paused, letting the tension build. "The murderer," he continued, "knew the conservatory's secrets, the orchid, the compartment, the glass. They used the blackout to strike, poisoning Sir Reginald with the alkaloid, staging the scene to mislead. But the thorn of truth, it pricks them now. He turned to Dr. Marsh, his voice sharp. "Madame, your research log. It is incomplete. The night of the murder you claim to be in your room, yet your log ends abruptly at 10. Where were you?" Dr. Marsh's face paled, her hands trembling. I was tired. I stopped writing. I swear I was in my room." Poirot's gaze shifted to Clara. "And you, mademoiselle, your handwriting. It does not match the notebook's annotations, but your fear, it betrays knowledge." "What do you hide?" Fala sobbed, shaking her head. "I don't false know anything. I loved Uncle Reginald." The room was electric, the guests shifting uneasily. Inspector Grayson stepped forward, his voice gruff. "Enough theatrics, Poirot. If you serve got proof, name the killer." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "The proof, Inspector. It is near. But the guilty, they feel the thorn now. They will make a mistake, and Hercule Poirot will be watching." As he dismissed the group, the suspects dispersed, their faces a gallery of fear and defiance. Clara clung to Victor. Dr. Marsh hurried away, and Tom lingered, his eyes on Clara. Poirot joined Hastings on the terrace, the conservatory glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You stirred the hornet's nest, Poirot's," Hastings said, his voice low. "But you didn't name the killer. Why?" Poirot's eyes were distant, fixed on the glass structure. "Because, Hastings, the thorn must pierce deeper. The murderer they are among us, and their fear will betray them. The notebook, the glass, the poison, they are the thorns, and the truth will bleed out." The aurum noctis, silent in its case, seemed to pulse with secrets, its golden flecks a challenge to Poirot's resolve. The final act was near, and the detective's mind was a blade, ready to cut through the lies. Chapter 12. The Orchid Set's confession. The Crystal Conservatory of Glastonbury Manor glowed under the midday sun, its glass panes refracting light into a kaleidoscope of colors that danced across the lush foliage. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, near the glass case of the aurum noctis, its indigo petals and golden flecks a silent witness to the tragedy that had unfolded. The guests, summoned once more, stood in a tense semicircle, their faces etched with anticipation and dread. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne had reached its denouement, and Poirot, with his little grey cells at their sharpest, was ready to unveil the truth. Captain Hastings, beside him, whispered, "This is it, Poirot. You've got the killer. Haven't set you." Poirot's green eyes gleamed, his moustache curving with quiet confidence. "Oui, mon ami, the orchid. It is confessed, and the murderer cannot hide. Let us begin." Inspector Grayson, arms crossed, watched with grudging respect. Clara Hawthorne clung to Victor, who stood free but wary. Dr. Evelyn Marsh gripped her notebook, her expression defiant, while Tom Wells stood at the edge, his weathered face unreadable. The other guests, mere spectators now, held their breath. "Mesdames et messieurs," Poirot began, his voice resonant in the humid air. "The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne was a crime of cunning woven with envy, greed, and betrayal. But the clues, the broken petal, the shattered glass, the chemical scent, the missing notebook, the empty compartment, they have spoken, and Hercule Poirot has listened." He paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. "Let us reconstruct the crime. Sir Reginald was poisoned with an alkaloid from the aurum noctis, delivered during the blackout. The glass pane was broken to suggest an intruder, but it was staged from within. The notebook found in Dr. Marsh's room revealed a medicine and a toxin. The hidden compartment, emptied of seeds, pointed to theft. But who had the knowledge, the opportunity, and the motive? Clarisip's voice trembled. "Please, Monsieur Poirot, tell us. Who did this?" Poirot's gaze swept the group, settling on Dr. Evelyn Marsh. "Madame Marsh, you are a botanist of great skill. You knew the aurum noctis sept's properties, and you were seen in the conservatory at midnight. The notebook was in your possession, yet you claim you were framed." Dr. Marsh's Eyes flashed. I found it there, planted to incriminate me. Poirot nodded. Indeed, madame, you are not the murderer, but you are not innocent. You sought Sir Reginald Esher's research, envious of his success. You took the notebook to study it, but someone else used your actions to their advantage. He turned to Victor. Monsieur Hawthorne, the forged document in your room suggested motive, debts, a threatened inheritance. But it was too convenient, placed to divert suspicion. You did not kill your uncle, but your recklessness made you an easy target. Victor exhaled, his shoulders sagging. Then who, Poirot? Who did it? Poirot sipped's gaze shifted to Clara, whose face paled. Mademoiselle Clara, you loved your uncle, yet you hid your engagement to Monsieur Wells, fearing his disapproval. You saw a light in the conservatory, but your fear kept you silent. Why? Clara sobbed, shaking her head. I didn't know anything, I swear. Poirot's voice softened, but his eyes were relentless. Not you, mademoiselle, but the one who stood by you, who knew the conservatory's secrets, who had access to Sir Reginald's trust. He turned, his finger pointing to Tom Wells. Monsieur Wells, it was you who killed Sir Reginald Hawthorne. Monsieur Wells, it was you who killed Sir Reginald Hawthorne. A gasp rippled through the room, and Tom Sipp's face hardened, his hands clenching. That's Sipp's madness, sir. I was loyal to him for 20 years. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the protests. Loyal, perhaps, until envy and greed took root. Let us see the truth. You knew the hidden compartment where Sir Reginald kept rare seeds worth a fortune. You knew his laboratory where he extracted the alkaloid. You loved Mademoiselle Clara, but Sir Reginald opposed your union, threatening to disinherit her. You saw an opportunity to steal the seeds, to secure your future, and to eliminate the obstacle. Tom's eyes darted, but Poirot continued, relentless. The night of the murder you used the blackout to act. You entered the conservatory, where Sir Reginald was tending the aurum noctis. You used ether, a chemical from the laboratory, to subdue him, then applied the alkaloid, extracted from the orchid to his skin, breaking a petal to ensure traces were found. You broke the glass pane from within, scattering shards outside to suggest an intruder. You took the notebook, planting it in Dr. Marsh's room to frame her, knowing her rivalry with Sir Reginald would make her a suspect. Clara Sepp's voice broke. Tom, no. Tell him it's Sepp's not true. Tom's shoulders slumped, his defiance crumbling. I didn't mean for it to go this far, he muttered. Sir Reginald, he was going to ruin us, Clara. He said he'd cut you off if we married. Those seeds, they were our chance for a new life. I only wanted to take them, but he caught me. I panicked. Poirot Sipps's voice was firm. And so you killed him, monsieur. The annotations in the notebook, your hurried notes betraying your knowledge of the toxin, the chemical scent, your use of ether, the compartment emptied by your hand. You wove a clever web, but Hercule Poirot has unraveled it. Inspector Grayson stepped forward, his face grim. Tom Wells, you're under arrest for murder. The constable cuffed Tom, who offered no resistance, his eyes fixed on Clara, who wept silently. As Tom was led away, Poirot addressed the group, the aurum noctis. It was the prize and the poison. Envy drove Dr. Marsh to covet it. Greed tempted Victor, and love twisted Monsieur Wells. But the truth, it always blooms. Hastings clapped Poirot on the shoulder. Brilliant, Poirot. You saw through it all. Poirot Sipp's smile was modest. The little grey cells, Hastings. They see what others miss. The orchid Sipp's confession. It was written in the clues, and I merely read it. The conservatory, now a place of resolution, stood silent, its beauty a stark contrast to the tragedy it had held. Chapter 13. The Fade of the Bloom. The morning mist clung to the grounds of Glastonbury Manor, softening the edges of the Crystal Conservatory that had been both a marvel and a stage for tragedy. Hercule Poirot, his overcoat buttoned against the autumn chill, stood on the gravel drive, his suitcase at his side, awaiting the car that would return him and Captain Hastings to London. The murder of Sir Reginald Hawthorne had been solved. The culprit, Tom Wells, now in custody, his confession a bitter bloom plucked from the tangled vine of envy and greed. Yet Poirot's mind, ever restless, lingered on the human frailties that had led to such a crime. Captain Hastings, emerging from the manor with his own bag, joined Poirot, his face reflecting a mix of relief and melancholy. "Well, Poirot, you've done it again," he said, attempting a smile. "Cracked the case wide open. But I can't say it feels like a victory, not with Clara so heartbroken and the manor in such a state." Poirot's green eyes, usually so piercing, softened as he gazed at the conservatory's shimmering panes.
"Victory, mon ami? It is never that."
"The truth, it brings justice, but it also brings pain. The aurum noctis, with its golden flecks, promised beauty and wealth, but it revealed only the shadows of human desire." The car arrived, a sleek Rolls-Royce, much like the one that had brought them to this place of secrets. As they settled into its leather seats, Hastings glanced back at the manor, its red brick facade now sombre in the grey light. "Poor Clara," he murmured, "to lose her uncle, and then Tom all in one fell swoop. Do you think she'll recover?" Poirot adjusted his gloves, his expression thoughtful. "Mademoiselle Clara, she is young, and the heart, it is resilient, but the wound of betrayal, it cuts deep. Monsieur Wells loved her, oui, but his love was tainted by greed. He sought the seeds, the fortune to secure their future, yet he destroyed it instead." Hastings nodded, his brow furrowed. "And Dr. Marsh, she wasn't set the killer, but she wasn't set exactly innocent, was she? Snooping around, hiding that notebook." "Precisement," Poirot replied. "Dr. Marsh, she was consumed by envy, coveting Sir Reginald's discovery. Her actions made her a suspect, but also a pawn in Tom's plan. He placed the notebook in her room, knowing her rivalry would cast suspicion. A clever move, but not clever enough to deceive Hercule Poirot." The car wound through the Kentish countryside, the rolling hills a stark contrast to the turmoil of the past days. Hastings leaned back, his voice quieter now. "What about Victor? He sets free, but those debts of his, and that forged document. Someone went to a lot of trouble to frame him." Poirot's moustache twitched, a faint smile emerging. The document. It was Tom's doing as well. He knew Victor's recklessness made him an easy target. By forging Sir Reginald's signature, Tom created a diversion, hoping to shift blame. But the handwriting, it lacked the finesse of a true forger, and the little grey cells they saw through it. Hastings shook his head, marveling. "You saw it all, the broken glass, the chemical scent, the notebook Sepp's annotations. How do you do it, Poirot? How do you piece it together when it all seems so tangled?" Poirot's gaze turned to the window, where the mist was lifting, revealing patches of green. "It is the method, Hastings. The clues, they are like petals scattered on the ground. One must gather them, arrange them, and see the flower they form. The aurum noctis, it was the center of this crime, its beauty a lure, its poison a weapon. Tom Wells, he saw its value, but also its power to destroy." A silence fell, broken only by the hum of the engine. Poirot's thoughts drifted to the conservatory, its glass panes a mirror of human ambition. "The conservatory," he said softly, "it was a place of beauty, but also of illusion. Like the heart, it holds both light and shadow. We see what we wish to see, but the truth, it is always there, waiting to be uncovered." Hastings smiled, a touch of his usual cheer returning. "You start getting philosophical, old chap, but I suppose you start right. People like Tom, they let their desires blind them. Makes you wonder what starts next for the manor with Sir Reginald gone." Poirot nodded, his expression grave. "The manor, it will endure as such places do. Clara, she may inherit, and perhaps she will preserve her Uncle Sepp's legacy, the plants, the research, the beauty. But the aurum noctis, it will always carry the stain of this crime." As the car approached London, the spires of the city emerging through the fog, Poirot leaned back, his hands folded. The case, It reminds us, Hastings, that greed and envy, they are thorns in the human soul. We seek to possess beauty, to control it, but it often controls us. Hastings chuckled, breaking the somber mood. You satir in fine form, Poirot. Any plans for a rest now that the case is solved? A quiet evening with a tisane, perhaps? Poirot sipped, his eyes twinkled. Autos, a tisane, oui, and perhaps a new puzzle, the little grey cells. They do not rest for long. The car pulled into Baker Street, and as Poirot stepped out, he cast one last glance toward the horizon, where Glastonbury Manor lay hidden in the distance. The Crystal Conservatory, once a symbol of wonder, now stood as a reminder of the fragility of human virtue. With a final nod to Hastings, Poirot ascended the steps to his flat, ready for whatever mystery awaited next. The bloom had faded, but the truth, as always, endured.